If the disciple is not true to his own instructor, his relationship with any aspect of matter is hollow. The disciple has to be true to his inner self in order to discover that in every situation the energy is present, the essence is present, his instructor is present in every situation. Occultly, the instructor is saying to him, "Set me free in this situation." When a being has to understand that he has to liberate the essence, the light, the consciousness that is in every situation, he has to understand that he is liberating his inner instructor, because the inner instructor puts him to trial. If he does not liberate him in the situation, it means that he did not assume, he did not understand the situation in its true dimension, and he is still a prisoner of the material situations. The consciousness and the cosmos, a path to one's own inner cosmos.
In assistance of the more profound understanding of the current planetary transition.
A stimuli that accompanies the pilgrim in his return to his cosmic home.
The consciousness and the cosmos. Radio program of Uksim, Planetary Service Center.
Hello dear listeners, my name is Jez. We will be hosting the program. Today's topic is, what is Internal Instructor?
One of the visitors of Uksim asked Daniel Gagliardo, what does it mean when life closed the doors of opportunities for someone? Is it because we have done something in particular?
A ver, las señales, porque el alma avisa es una señal. Insistimos, las señales son utilizadas según la inteligencia, la energía considera, en función de lo que un ser puede necesitar o no, para tener un parámetro y poder tomar la decisión de transformarse.
The signals, because what the soul warns is a signal. The signals are used according to what the intelligence of the energy considers, according to what a being may or not need in order to have a parameter and to be able to make the decision to transform, to take on certain changes. In other words, the soul speaks. The soul, the energy, or the law can use all kinds of signals. Now, seen from where you are looking at it, at least from where you are trying to make us see it, if a person is having doors and gates closed, it could be that they didn't do what they needed to do so that the doors would remain open. I mean, if the soul speaks, the soul, the energy, or the law can use all kinds of signals. Now, seen from where you are looking at it, at least from where you are trying to get us to see it, if a person is having doors or gates closed to them, it may be that they didn't do what they needed to do so that the doors would remain open. And it may be that after a number of spurned opportunities, the inner consciousness says, okay, that's it. It is not that the doors are closed. The doors are closed by you. The energy does not close doors, except when it wants you to go to the other door, and it puts 10 locks on this one.
Para que una puerta tenga candado, en algún momento hay que cerrarla. Después vienen los candados. Las puertas no se fabrican con candados. Los candados se ponen después en las puertas. Entonces la actitud de un individuo puede hacer que una puerta quede candada, quede cerrada. Entonces, particularmente los seres.
When was it when the doors were locked? Did all the doors have padlocks on them? For a door to have a lock at some point, it has to be closed. The doors are not made with locks. The locks are put on the doors afterward. So, an individual can cause a door to be closed, particularly the beings that we can see continuously are losing opportunities. We can interpret it as doors being closed. We have to understand that the energy does not put doors so that you do not pass, but the energy puts forces sometimes that demand all your will to open those doors or to keep them open.
Otras decir, ábrete sésamo. Otras ni siquiera se acercan a la puerta y se les abre, porque nadie sabe lo que requiere la energía o lo que le va a ofrecer la energía. Así que señales podría haber siempre, pero las señales no son para eliminarnos.
We don't know. I don't have the inside information at the moment that would allow me to know the nature of the incarnation of the person you are referring to. But generally speaking, we are all absolutely responsible for what happens to the door when we are in front of it. Some people have to learn to break down the doors, others gently knock on them, others say, "Open sesame." Others don't even approach the door, and so there could always be signs, but the signs are not to eliminate us. The signs are for us to be attentive and to dispose the energy according to what is appropriate, what is necessary, what life considers that we have to have at our disposal. It's like a prophecy. We could say that within the framework of the prophecy, a genuine internal sign, an internal genuine symbol, is the most synthetic prophecy that a being can receive. Afterwards, each one faced with the prophecy, with the symbol, responds with what his or her conscience at that moment will allow him or her to rehearse.
We know that we have inner consciousness that is contained of levels, from the soul right to the divine consciousness. But where exactly is the inner instructor through all these levels? We know that we have a soul, we have a spirit, a so-called monada, and divine consciousness. Which of those level of consciousness is the inner instructor?
Y el instructor interno es la sumatoria de esos niveles. Y ese instructor interno opera a través de cada uno de esos núcleos en función de la etapa evolutiva en la cual nos encontramos nosotros. Porque el instructor interno tiene como tarea ofrecer al ego, y el ego en el ensayo que hace con la personalidad, ofrecerle al ego.
The inner instructor is the sum of those levels, and that inner instructor operates through each of those nuclei according to the evolutionary stage in which we find ourselves, because the task of the inner instructor is to offer the ego, and the ego in the rehearsal it does with the personality, to offer the ego to learn to live according to the inner cosmic spiritual laws. An instructor, or the energy of instruction, has no other role to assume than to be the exclusive tool of the energy of instruction, under the foundation of radiating that instruction as a parameter for those who are receptive to it, to learn, to execute in their lives in a practical way. in what we call in Cosmosophy practical spirituality, or to put spirituality in practice, moment by moment, to live in the eternal now, the spiritual laws.
Porque la solución es interna. Ese guerrero sabe cuándo y de qué modo salir al campo de batalla. La materialidad es un campo de pruebas, es un laberinto, es un campo de batalla. Cuando el ego se quiere meter en ese campo de batalla, en ese laberinto, si no sale muerto, sale destruido, golpeado, dañado. Entonces hace mucho más largo el aprendizaje porque está tomando el camino indebido, el camino más largo.
The inner instructor is the instrument present in each one of us. When necessary, the soul itself is the direct tool of that inner instructor. When necessary, the inner instructor turns through monadic energies, dosing the divine patterns. The divine energy flows in an intense way towards ego and personality. That is to say, there are various nuclei which are tools and elements that constitute material of that inner instructor. So when we talk about the search for the inner instructor, it is like talking about the search for attunement and alignment with our inner life, because that inner instructor is the synthesis of that inner life that we have to know, that we have to synchronize with, that we have to be aligned with, and to the extent that this is genuine, learn to liberate by reflection in matter.
Entonces, de algún modo, encontrar ese guerrero que combata por nosotros es una prueba irrefutable de que ya somos discípulos genuinos de ese instructor interno. Un ser tiene que asumir en algún momento de su evolución el discipulado. A veces el instructor es externo, a veces interno.
The important thing to understand is that the inner instructor, whatever tool he chooses, is silently and occultly holding what he needs with his energy and making available to the disciple.
Materiality is a trial field. It is a labyrinth. It is a battlefield. When the ego wants to get into that battlefield, into that labyrinth, if it doesn't come out dead, it comes out destroyed, beaten, damaged. So it makes learning much longer because it takes the longest path. When the ego understands that it really has to surrender to a superior warrior, and that this superior warrior is its own inner instructor, it becomes the warrior's squire. It no longer wants the warrior because it knows that it has to learn from this inner master, from this inner instructor, who will serve it and place it in an order of battle where the ego can really come out ahead in an apprenticeship. When the ego wants to occupy a place in the battle that does not correspond to it, we already know what happens. We already know what happens. The one that does not pass it passes it, and it will pass. So somehow finding that warrior who fights for us is an irrefutable trial, and we are already genuine disciples of that inner instructor. A being has to assume discipleship at some point in its evolution. Sometimes the instructor is internal, sometimes external, but in reality it is always internal. Only sometimes it delegates certain functions to the external one, because the ego and the personality, being refractory, inflexible, and for a lot of reasons, that internal instructor places us in front of an external instructor.
Por eso, la energía dice que un ser que tiene madurez tiene que encontrar el guerrero que combata por él. El ego y la personalidad son guerreros que suelen perder las batallas, las peleas, los combates, porque están bajo aspectos de las leyes cósmicas donde perder y ganar forma parte del intercambio más básico del aprendizaje.
That is why the energy says that a being who has the maturity has to find the warrior who will fight for him. The ego and the personality are warriors who usually lose the battles of the fights and the combats because they are under the aspects of the cosmic laws, where losing and winning are part of the most basic exchange of learning. When a being learns to synchronize with his inner instructor and allows it to express itself, he has just found the warrior who fights for him. Because the solution is internal, the warrior knows when and how to take the battlefield.
Therefore, we have to be faithful to that inner instructor, to our inner consciousness, because our egoically rehearsed faithfulness in relation to external issues is self-deception. We beings believe that we are faithful when we comply with some precepts that we were made to believe, familiarly, socially, culturally, doctrinally, religiously, and so on. Mind, mind, mind. But the only faithfulness which can be nourishment, because genuine faithfulness nourishes consciousness, is faithfulness to our own inner consciousness, to our own inner self, to our own inner instructor.
Claro, nunca vamos a conocer esas experiencias. Por eso, simbólicamente, en el futuro ciclo planetario, quienes retornen a la superficie de la Tierra van a hacer ciertas experiencias con condiciones muy particulares, con fuerzas involutivas.
If the disciple is not true to his own inner instructor, his relationship with any aspect of matter is hollow. The disciple has to be true to his inner self in order to discover that in every situation the energy is present, the essence is present, his instructor is present in every situation. Occultly, the instructor is saying to him, "Set me free in this situation." When a being has to understand that he has to liberate the essence, the light, the consciousness that is in every situation, he has to understand that he is liberating his inner instructor, because the inner instructor puts him to trial. If he does not liberate him in the situation, it means that he did not assume, he did not understand the situation in its true dimension, and he is still a prisoner of the material situations.
So therefore we can say that the dissuasive forces are not going to destroy the world, if not our domination of their presence in our inner consciousness.
De la superficie planetaria, en una medida, en un rango, ¿sí? Pero esa energía tiene que ser ensayada, aunque más no sea simbólicamente y acotadamente, pero tiene que ser ensayada.
It will no longer be the involutionary forces that generate forced conditions on the substantial material form. Still, matter will begin to respond directly to higher energies that will generate the conditions of the apex of purification. Because no matter how much we, and it is true, suppose that the involutionary forces are accelerating the purifying process, this is not enough to order the process of transition. It cannot be left in the hands of something so lacking in intelligence, such as the dissuasive forces.
So we are in a transition stage where the dissuasive forces still have a place, punctual participation in what is happening in the material world. The hierarchy lets these forces be responsible for fluctuation, toxicity, negativity, and all that we already know. But beyond a certain stage, it cannot be left in the hands of something so unintelligent, because the dissuasive forces are not intelligent. They are effective, and we must not confuse their effectiveness with which the law of karma enabled them, with the intelligence that is needed to close the transition of a planet.
¿Por qué? Porque no vas... A ver, se inicia un ciclo que va a ser muy extenso y esa parte solamente va a ser ensayada en las primeras etapas de ese ciclo tan extenso. Por lo cual, en las etapas más avanzadas...
From that moment on, everything that makes up the three-dimensional and karmic field will respond to intelligent energies, to intelligent orders. It means, in other words, the absolute will of the hierarchy that will use these elements in the closing of the transition. When John spoke of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, he symbolically mentioned the entire karmic and the three-dimensional constitution of the planet, because the four horsemen of the apocalypse are each of the four elements that will respond intelligently to the closing of the transition. So it is logical that it should be so. That is why the days of the dissuasive forces are numbered. They are not going to take the planet to the very end in that process of purification and ordering, but to a few steps before the apex. From there, they thank you for the services provided, and they will be placed in another aspect of the cosmic order. And from there, the whole process is in the hands of the hierarchies, of the absolute intelligence of the energies. To deactivate them is the work of the hierarchies. The humanity of which we are composed does not have to dissolve anything at this stage. They cannot dissolve anything. This whole process of bringing to a degree of reversal the presence and participation of the dissuasive forces is the work of the hierarchy. They are the only ones who govern laws that would permit that. So it is the work of the hierarchies.
Los que estén presentes no van a hacer esa experiencia, pero esa experiencia va a estar instalada como una experiencia, como un dominio de leyes cósmicas ya presente en esa instancia, ya presente en el marco de la superficie planetaria.
The idea is not to bring them to a degree where the will of the forces does not predominate. A humanity that achieves a certain internal order by not feeling them gradually starves them.
That is, it boxes the intensity that these forces have to do their work. No humanity at the karmic level subtracts the presence of those forces, because until the last moment, the karmic humanity has to be put to the test, and we will never understand the kind of test we could have faced if we had put the involutionary forces in the right context, to bring them to a degree of weakening, to a degree of control, but not an intentional control of the forces. Because the control of those forces is given indirectly, when my consciousness is aligned in attunement, automatically, when my inner life controls my outer being, those forces are controlled. I don't need to fight a duel with those forces when my inner life controls my inner reality. Transitively, those forces are controlled because nothing feeds them.
Una parte, ¿por qué? Porque no vas... A ver, se inicia un ciclo que va a ser muy extenso y esa parte solamente va a ser ensayada en las primeras etapas de ese ciclo tan extenso. Por lo cual, en las etapas más avanzadas...
The idea is not to bring them to a degree where the will of the forces does not predominate. A humanity that achieves a certain internal order by not feeling them gradually starves them.
Los que estén presentes no van a hacer esa experiencia, pero esa experiencia va a estar instalada como una experiencia, como un dominio de leyes cósmicas ya presente en esa instancia, ya presente en el marco de la superficie planetaria. ¿Sí?
There are humanities that for the most part reach this condition, that the internal life present in these humanities controls the external. From there, transitory and by a transitive character, symbolically, in a future planetary cycle, those who return to the planet are going to make certain experiences with very particular conditions with the dissuasive forces. because our humanity has to experience being before those forces without those forces influencing us.
There is going to be a stage where those on the surface of the planet will work to neutralize those forces and cooperate to remove them from the planetary surface. In a measure, in a range, but that energy has to be rehearsed, and if only symbolically and in a limited way, it has to be rehearsed. It is the beginning of a cycle that will be very extensive. That part will only be rehearsed in the first stages of such an extensive cycle, and therefore in the more advanced stages, those who are present will not have that experience. Still, that experience will be installed as an experience, as a domain of the cosmic laws, already present in that instance, already present in the framework of the planetary surface.